Hey there everybody, before we get started with the video, I just wanted you to join me as I complete the final page of Brody's Ghost Book 6, which is to say the last page of the entire story, more than 520 pages. I've been working on this for 7 years, and so rather than just do this on my own, I wanted you to be here as I typed the words "the end" and hit save. So there you have it, the end of an era. And of course, I will be working on other books. 2015 is going to be a big year for me. A couple of different books coming out, and I look forward to telling you more about them in the weeks and months ahead. But for now, let's go ahead and get back to the video. Hey there everybody, it's Mark Crilley. I'm back with another How to Draw video. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a pop-up Christmas card. And the first thing I want to say is that you want to use the thickest paper you can find. This is a Bristol board, kind of cardstock. You could also use poster board, but if you use ordinary office paper, it's probably a little too flimsy for what we're trying to do here today. Now you see I have 3 lines here. This is going to be to help you place the lines. They are about 3 inches apart. That comes out to around 7.5 centimeters, with just one line right in the middle between them. So let's go ahead and get into some basic guidelines. Alright, so what we're going to be drawing here is a little girl who has just received a puppy as a Christmas gift, and so she's reacting with joy, as anyone would, upon receiving such a gift. And her face is going to be right here. Notice how the chin area crosses just below that line. That'll help you for placing that. And then the hat, her sort of Christmas Santa Claus style hat, is going to curve right up here until it touches that top line, then comes back to a point where I suppose I can go ahead and add that classic puffball. Is that what it's called? The puffball, the Christmas puffball at the end of a Santa Claus cap. So just add that in there. And now let's go ahead and draw her arms. So for the arms, you see over here we have a shape that looks a little bit like a Valentine's heart almost, but it really is an arm bent at the elbow coming up to the hand here. And then because she's turned in a 3/4 point of view, we only really see the one part of this arm over here. Well, let's go ahead now and draw the rest of the body. So she's kneeling, kind of facing in the direction of the puppy dog, and what happens is you end up with these 2 lines here and here that kind of echo each other on either side of her body. Make sure that you keep this line as straight as you can. That's where we're going to be folding this as we pop it out later on. Now, let's go ahead and get on to drawing the present and the puppy dog itself. Alright, so this is the box that the puppy is going to be still sort of halfway inside. And just pay attention to the line at the top and how close it is. I'd say it's nearly 2/3 of the distance, this box here. And let's go ahead and draw a couple of flaps on either side to make it look a little more 3-dimensional. So, yeah, you can see one of the flaps over here sort of looks like a, what is that, a trapezoid? A parallelogram. In any case, this is one of the flaps that makes it just look more box-like to me. And you'll notice that I'm keeping the contours quite simple throughout this illustration. That's because I'm going to need to cut this out with a knife later on. In fact, this would be very hard to cut, and you're going to see later on as I add details to that hat that I sort of turn this into more of a uniform shape so as to make it easy for cutting out. Well, let's go ahead and get on to drawing the puppy dog. Alright, so hopefully the shape of the head is not too hard to draw. The snout is pointing toward her, and I've given the dog these kind of floppy downward pointing ears. I find that if you give the upward pointing ears, it's very easy for it to start looking like a cat. Well, maybe you want it to be a cat, in which case go ahead and do that. We're almost done with the basic guidelines. I'm going to draw lines for the paws here and then just a little bit of the tail. Okay, well, we are going to knock it off with the time lapse. Goodbye, old man time lapse. Time to do some real-time drawing. I'm going to turn this cap into more of a Santa Claus-esque kind of a cap. Sort of adding a border that's going to be white down here at the bottom. And happily, it begins to connect with that puffball and is going to begin to turn that into a single shape that I think we can get away with not having to cut inside there if we draw it the right way. Now I'm going to go ahead and start erasing some things here. If you want to make the cloth of the cap look a little more cloth-like, you can add 1 or 2 extra lines in here as it folds across and drops down. I'm going to start drawing the face here, and I suppose the first thing to do is to draw the eyes. I'm going to draw these sort of classically happy-looking chibi eyes. I suppose this character does qualify as a chibi character, but I guess I'm also making it just a basic cartoony kind of a style that maybe will not alienate the people in the audience who don't like manga style stuff. But notice how I'm doing this, very gently curving both of them, and then just 1 extra line above each one. That's the fold of the upper eyelid. I'm going to skip the nose, as one often does with chibi characters, and just go right down to the mouth. And by dropping this sort of partly behind these hands, you end up with this classic happy pose of hands right up covering the mouth. And I'm going to erase away what was there for the line of the chin, and maybe open up the space of the hands a little bit here, and do matching cuffs on her little stylish Santa suit. Now, I'm a little confused, actually, because if she's wearing a Santa suit, shouldn't she be giving the puppy dog to somebody else? I'm sorry, people, I didn't think through the concept as thoroughly as I should have. But let's say that even Santa Claus wearing people need to receive gifts too. Does that make sense? I don't think so. That was not even an actual grammatical English sentence, Mark. It's getting bad. In any case, it's time to draw the hair. I'm going to draw a couple of little strands of hair coming down along the side of her face, both sides. And give her some bangs. I would encourage you to, draw your own character here. It could be a character of your own creation. You could take a pre-existing character and turn it into a chibi version. You could draw your friend, someone that you want to give this card to. Always encourage creativity. Feel free to make it your own and not follow line for line everything that I do. But you may want to add ears. I don't want to tell you what to do, but your character lacking ears will not be able to hear that puppy dog's cheerful yapping. And that just wouldn't be right. Anyone who's watched my videos before will not be at all surprised to see me adding pigtails. I do like to draw a chibi character with pigtails. So I'm going to add those in right here. And even though I'm sort of dividing it into strands, again, note that I'm taking care not to make this too hard to cut out with the knife. In fact, you may think about, well, let's see, if I redraw this so that her pigtail attaches to the hair here, this is the kind of stuff you think about when you realize you're going to cut something out, and then I just have this almost meet here, then I don't have to cut in so deeply. This is all has to do with sort of planning out the craft aspect of it in advance. Well, let's make sure that she doesn't have only one pigtail, because that would be weird. Get the other one in here. Although just because of the angle, it's probably you're not going to see quite as much of it. And I feel like a belt, a little Santa belt, would be a nice addition to this costume. Why not get a buckle in there? And finally, this pose makes it, I think, fairly easy to draw the legs, because you've got this one big long shape here. I'm going to divide it right here, and then put one curving line here. Later on, when we color this in, it'll become kind of clear that she's wearing boots here, and that this is really just the other knee. And I think to make the dress match her cap and so forth and the cuffs, I'm going to add yet another little line here, a band of white, for giving her that classic Santa suit. And now, after I erase this line here, and maybe the lines across the face, I can move on to drawing the puppy dog. And let's make the puppy dog just as happy as she is. Give the puppy dog those happy sort of, I call them crescent moon eyes. I don't know what else to call them. Does anyone else have an idea for a good name for these kinds of eyes? But just sort of, hers are very gently curving. I think I'll give the puppy dog a more pronounced curvature, crescent eye curvature. And let's come over here and start refining the snout into a bit of a curve, like so. He looks a little weird right now, bear with me. I want to get a tongue that comes out between the two of those things. Those things. I'm so articulate. The two of those things that I just drew. And let's make sure we get a nose. Now, because the dog is in a 3/4 point of view, the nose does end up rather far over to the left side of things here. And one thing that I'm planning for later in the video is I want to, give the dog a collar, but I have this idea of actually tying a gift tag using real thread to the puppy dog's neck. So I'm kind of on purpose leaving a space here where that thread could tie around. And erase this line here and go ahead and turn this sort of, it's like the shape of a letter B, I guess, that I drew there for the paws. Go ahead and split those in half. And just a couple of little lines here will make that look more paw-like. And that's basically it, my friends, except there's one other thing that I'm going to do, and it's going to require refocusing the camera just a little bit. So I told you that we're going to pop out both of these characters, sort of fold them up, and I thought it would be interesting if on this floor-like plane of paper, if we draw gift wrap that has been open and sort of crumpled up and lying flat, it could make an interesting sort of 3D effect. So it requires you to kind of stop thinking of making this look like you're seeing it from the side and instead draw it as if you're looking straight down on it. And, I'm kind of just making almost a starburst kind of a design here that to me looks like gift wrap paper. I'm really winging it, kind of making it up as I go. Because it's supposed to be all crumply looking, I feel like you can get away with any number of weird, irregular shapes down here. In fact, you don't want it to be too clean looking where it won't look like crumpled up paper. But the key thing is to sort of imagine that you're looking straight down on it, even back here, because all of this stuff is going to still be laying flat. I don't know if I'm explaining this very well, but later on you're going to see when we pop this up that hopefully this lower area will look like a bunch of freshly unwrapped wrapping paper. And to complete the effect, I am also going to draw a couple of strands of ribbon. Right, because the box, before she opened it, was tied with ribbon. And to make it look a little more 3D, although I'm not going to be cutting this part of it out, I decided to have the ribbon go up just a little before it flops back down. And maybe over here I'll do the same thing. Now you don't have to do this whole thing with the gift wrapping. Consider this optional, not really crucial to the project, but I thought it would be kind of cool to have these two different planes going on, seeing them from the side and then sort of looking down at this wrapping paper. And sorry if this part of it seems quite complex, but I did it all real time, so hopefully we didn't rush through that. But speaking of rushing through things, it's time to get onto the coloring part of it. And though I can do maybe a little bit of this real time, I think there will be a fair amount of time lapse starting now. Let me go ahead and get my markers. Okay, so the dominant color scheme is going to be red and green, the classic Christmas colors. And I've got a, what is this, a Tria Latracid. I don't know if they even make these anymore. Marker. You don't have to use marker. You could use watercolor. You could do the whole thing with just colored pencils, anything that you're comfortable with. It is, if you've made it at this size, though, you'll want something that offers you at least a little bit of precision. Because there are little tiny nooks and crannies that need to be filled in. So I'm somewhat unusually starting with the color and saving the outlining for later, because I think I am actually going to outline this with black colored pencil rather than ink, and that might, if I did that first, it might mix in with the marker and discolor things a little bit. But you get the idea of how I do this. Let's go ahead and finish off all the red parts in time-lapse. All right, now I'm switching to a light green. This is maybe not the classic Christmas green color, but I don't like to use too dark of a green on something like this. It's, you know, dark green can really obliterate the artwork beneath and can begin to almost read as black from a distance, although I do have a dark green that I'm going to use for the ribbon. Boy, this marker is running out of ink, folks, so my apologies. I suppose now's a good time to say that when you are dealing with a low ink situation, patience is key. Start moving that marker very slowly across the page. Now, you know, you're making the best of a bad situation. You always want to have a brand new marker if you can, but I suppose sometimes you're stuck with what you have, and you will get better results in this sort of low moisture situation if you color very slowly. And unfortunately, I think to be consistent, I'm going to have to also use this over here as well. Let's see if using the other side, maybe it may be better, it may be even worse. It's about the same. How exciting is this, watching me color this? Let's go ahead and time-lapse through the rest of it. Alright, well now that I've got all the markering done, I can come in here with my trusty black Prismacolor and start adding the final line work. Now I'm making these outlines of the contour very thick and bold because I do intend to cut across them with a knife, like an art knife later on. In fact, maybe most of the lines in this whole project are going to be fairly thick, maybe a little thicker than I might ordinarily do. That has the effect of making it look more cartoony, but it's sort of a stylistic choice. If you wanted it to look more three-dimensional, you certainly would not want to have such a thick outline. In fact, you might choose to have no outline at all and just have everything defined by way of shading. In any case, you get the sense of the speed or lack thereof with which I approach this part of the process, and you could certainly do this with ink if you prefer. You're going to get a sharper, cleaner line if you do that. In a way, I want this deliberately handmade, handcrafted kind of look that is immediately recognizable as something that you made at home rather than something store-bought. So that was part of my thinking of using colored pencils even for the outlining process. Well, let's go ahead and finish up the outlining with time-lapse, but then I'll do some real time for the shading. Alright, well, you could even just declare yourself done at this point if you wanted to, but I'm going to add a little more shading with colored pencil, and for all of these red areas, instead of using black as a shading color, I'm actually using a brown. which I guess you could regard as sort of a darker version of the color that I'm adding shade to, right? So that when I want to add shade to the green here, instead of using a black pencil, I'll probably use a dark green. And if you just use a darker shade of whatever color you happen to be working on, it tends to look nicer. It looks a little more professional than if you just went straight in there with black, which can create a pretty harsh shadow. Certainly useful for some effects if you want a sort of a harsh shadow, but worth experimenting with this idea of using the darker version of the color that you're adding shade to. Well, sadly, I think it's time for me to go ahead and do the rest of this in time-lapse. Sorry that this didn't end up being a video about coloring so much. It really had to be more about just creating the shapes, and then later on we're going to get into some of the fun part of like cutting it out and making it a little more 3D. So anyway, let's go ahead and wrap up the color pencil part. Alright, so I've got all the pencil shading done, and now I'm going to pull out a separate piece of cardstock here and just sort of quickly draw a gift tag here. Just really kind of tossing this together almost on the fly. But this is what I'm going to tie to the dog's collar with an actual piece of thread later on, which I think will add an interesting little bit of three-dimensionality. Of course, we're cheating it by making it so huge. I don't think anyone would put such a gigantic Jigunga tag onto the puppy, but in any case, I want it to be big enough for me to write Merry Christmas on here. Let me go ahead and add a color, maybe a little brown to it by way of marker. And now I'm just going to kind of freehand in the little message of Merry Christmas. Wish me luck, because I could completely ruin this right now. But this just gives you an example of how you could add a note to this little project that we're making here today. And now it is time to start cutting things out with the knife. So what I'm going to do is pull out this protective knife cutting pad. Hang on a second. Okay, so what I have here is a sort of protective pad that you can buy at an art store that protects the table when you're cutting through cardstock with an X-Acto blade like this one. So let me go ahead and get this underneath the paper and we'll start cutting out the shapes. Okay, so now that I've got that protective material down there, I can take my X-Acto knife. Is it X-Acto blade or X-Acto knife? I can go ahead and slice through this outline here, and of course it does take a steady hand, but you can sort of, you know, make corrections later on with a little additional black colored pencil or ink, you know, to hide any irregularities in the edge of the surface as you cut around here. You could, of course, just try to do this with scissors. I'm trying to do this in such a way that it has that pop-out effect where you actually see the remaining shape after you've cut it, you know, left in the area behind. Anyway, that what I just said might make a tiny bit more sense later on when I do the popping out part. Well, let's go ahead and use time-lapse to finish cutting. The one thing before I do that is just to stress, you do not want to cut along here, and you definitely do not want to cut along here, but you're going to cut right down to that point before you stop. So let's go ahead and do that, and I'll be right back to move on to the final part of the video. Alright, so I'm almost done cutting all of this, but I wanted to slow down and do real time just so that you can see an important distinction here. As I said, this I'm cutting all the way down to this line that I'm stopping. Over here, it's a little more complex in the sense that I'm cutting along this line and stopping, but I'm not going to touch this back here. Again, cutting down along the line of the box, but then not touching that with the knife. So let's just go ahead and do that so you can see. I thought that if I didn't point this out, it might not be clear. People might start cutting around the wrapping paper, which you definitely do not want to do. But what you could do is to use this knife to very lightly score. Let me see if I can do this here. I'll just pull out my trusty ruler. The ruler is never trusty, Mark, only the black Prismacolor. And I'm flipping the knife around because I'm not trying to cut, I'm just trying to score it, trying to make it easier to fold. So I'm just sort of dragging it across there and then doing the same just below the area of the Christmas box. And rather than give it all away right now, we're going to refocus the camera from a completely different point of view so that we can see as these two figures begin to pop up. All right, well, here comes the big moment of truth. By cutting all around the contours, we're able to fold this character up like so. Again, very important to be using Bristol board cardstock. Something like that to get this effect so that it stands up nice and straight. But hold on, we're not done yet. Because I took this, and as you can see, I cut a little hole in it and tied a piece of string so that I can attach it right here around Fido's neck. Is it Fido? Maybe we should call him Wan Wan. Yes, I think I shall call him Wan Wan. And there you go, my little Christmas pop-up card project. I really hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think of this video in the comment section, and I will definitely be doing more in the months and years ahead. So, wishing you all the best for Christmas and beyond, and thanks again for watching this video. I'll be back with another one real soon.